Now, Heidi Tom, Marvin Scott, Jerry Gerard with sports, and Bob Harris with the weather. The Emmy Award-winning Channel 11 News at 10.
Good evening, everyone. It was a modern-day morality play, a parable for our times, and tonight it is over. A verdict in the so-called Fatal Attraction case.
After 2 trials and thousands of hours of testimony, Carolyn Warmus found guilty in the sensational tale of jealousy, sex, and violence. Ellen Marks was in the court for the dramatic conclusion.
The ink was barely dry on the headline spelling out the guilty verdict when Carolyn Warmus's lawyer said they would appeal.
Carolyn Warmus is obviously shocked and disappointed at the verdict. To the very end, she expected to be acquitted. We do believe that there are substantial legal issues which are worthy of appellate consideration.
The jury was into day number 7, deliberating for just an hour this morning before making up its mind for good. In a shaky voice in front of a packed courtroom, the forewoman announced the panel of 7 men and 5 women had found Carolyn Warmus guilty on both counts of second-degree murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Then the click of handcuffs, a sedated Warmus showing little emotion. The 28-year-old former schoolteacher was convicted of firing 9 shots into Betty Jean Solomon in her Greenberg apartment on January 15, 1989. Prosecutors say she pulled the trigger in a jealous rage out of an obsessive love for Mrs. Solomon's husband, Paul. He broke down after learning the verdict.
I beg of you all now, please allow Kristen and me and our families to go forward. I will not make another statement. We need to now have the time to properly go forward.
Warmus's first trial ended in a hung jury, with 8 voting to convict. What swayed the jury this time?
I don't think you can pinpoint one piece of evidence. I think that it was the entire body of evidence that we presented to them, the circumstantial evidence that we presented them, from which they could see and from which they can infer and conclude that she had killed Betty Jean Solomon.
But the defense says it was the black knit glove the jury got its hands on that made the difference in this trial. The glove prosecutors claim Warmus left behind at the crime scene only to turn up 3 years after the murder.
I think that the glove was a very damaging piece of evidence.
Warmus, who has avoided the press like the plague, declared her innocence in today's Newsday. Her first attorney, David Lewis, has his doubts, too.
I don't like to see people convicted when there's a question about whether or not they've done it.
Carolyn Warmus will spend tonight in the Westchester County Jail. She will be sentenced on June 26th to a minimum of 15 years to life.
Ellen, you've covered both the trials now. The first one, of course, ending in a hung jury, and both based on circumstantial evidence. Was there anything beyond the glove that made a difference this time?
Marvin, it was a completely different trial. For starters, Carolyn Warmus had a different attorney, and the makeup of the jury was different. But I think the most important thing here is the prosecution put on a better case. They basically had a dress rehearsal. They've been through this before. And in their closing argument, they made a lasting impression. They urged the jury not to look at the evidence piecemeal, but to look at the body of evidence. And apparently they did.
You know, Ellen, Carolyn Warmus seemed much more confident this time around.
Absolutely, Heidi. There were no cameras in the courtroom to distract her. She openly smiled at the jury throughout the trial. And in addition, she also smiled at the press.
Was there any evidence of any split in the jury?
Absolutely. I think the sheer fact that deliberations took this long, and based on the notes they were sending, it was clear there were some who had reasonable doubt.
Okay, Ellen Marks, thank you very much, and
Thanks,
congratulations on a job well done. 8 months covering these 2 trials.
Thank you.